Welcome to ALC Chats, a podcast series developed and produced by the Ageless Living Collaborative. I'm Phoebe Stein, president of Olive Presents and co-founder of the Ageless Living Collaborative. Ageless Living Collaborative is dedicated to optimizing the lives of seniors and giving them the information and tools to live their best lives. The mission of ALC is to listen, educate, inspire, and influence positive change for seniors and those who support the aging community. ALC Chats is another platform to reach those interested in supporting seniors, be it in senior living or aging in place. ALC Chats comes to you as a podcast and in some cases a vodcast. You can find ALC content on our website, www.agelesslivingcollaborative.org, or by following us on social media channels Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on our own YouTube channel. Whichever place you follow us, we're happy you've chosen to join us. And now we welcome our featured guest. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very exciting podcast for you. I think it's something that anybody who has an aging parent, neighbor, relative can relate to. Today, our guests are Jane Rohde, founder of Live Together and JSR Associates, as well as David Ashen, CEO of Saguez Dash and co-founder of Ageless Living Collaborative. Thank you both for joining us today. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Our topic is really decoding our seniors' intention. So what does that mean? Well, we were trying to unpack this a little bit, and we came to realize that nobody gave us the decoder ring. When we were kids, we could imagine something that could unlock the answers. Well, as adults with aging parents or aging relatives or neighbors, we still need that decoder ring. And we're trying to share some of the decoding in this podcast. So, with that, I'm going to start off with Jane, and I'm going to ask you to tell me what might be your favorite go to on the decoder ring. What is something that you hear, but it actually means something else?
That's a great question. Thanks for having me again, Phoebe. So, as you know, my parents live in the duplex attached to my house, and we've decided to move them down. I've worked in the senior living field for well over 30 years, 35 years, and really thought I knew quite a bit, right? And thought, oh, I can do this. I can be a caregiver. I can figure this out. We can make this work. I knew nothing when it came to actually working with my parents, right? In terms of their wants and dislikes and what was really important and what I thought might be important wasn't at all what their expectations were. And so my dad is like both my parents have some levels of cognitive impairment. My dad is really easygoing. That's how he's kind of managed his whole life. Mom's kind of like on the other spectrum of uptight and a little bit difficult. But what I found was that he was okay with moving eventually, but he kind of goes in and out where he thinks sometimes he's going home and sometimes he's not going home, right? So they lived in my living room for 6 months. Don't recommend that. And as they moved into the new place, though, what the strategy was is it's kind of like just ask them the question, because even if they don't remember the answer later, when they agree with you or disagree, you can go, I thought this would be a good idea. What do you think about this? Or would you like this or this? Giving them the choice has made things easier to understand that you have to meet them where they are, because I would think that I'd want to be doing things or going away or going out or whatever. I asked them a question one day. I said, so what else would you like to do in your life? They're 86 and 84, and they're kind of an older 86 and 84, but they don't have any comorbidities. They have, my dad has diabetes, but nothing else. And so you kind of look at it and you think they looked at each other and they go, we'll get back to you on that. Because they couldn't articulate what they would even like to still do. I mean, they could easily live for another 5 or 10 years without any trouble at all. And
I think
so
it's important to realize and remember that you should be asking for that engagement because our natural instinct as caregivers is to take care of. And much like having kids, you kind of set the tone, you set the pace, you set the agenda, but they used to set the agenda. So getting them involved in that decision making is really important. I know I found with my mother who had no cognitive impairment, and I'm still trying to live up to being as brilliant as she was. I think that whenever I made an assumption that she would like X or Y, I was gonna lose. I was absolutely gonna lose. I had to, um, get engagement with her. I had to have her part of that decision making. She did not want me to make decisions for her at all, and I think once I knew that, it made things a lot easier, right? Because if I assumed that, well, she just wants me to take care of it, she told me when she was ready for me to do that, and I never crossed that line once I figured it out. It takes a while. You have to know who are your parents? What do they need out of you right now? Or your neighbor, whomever, and and at least seek the engagement because if you don't do that, you don't know where they're coming from. And it can be really simple. It can be like getting the grocery list and picking up groceries and realizing you got everything on the list, but you got the wrong thing. Well, how does that happen? I got everything on the list. What do you mean I got the wrong milk? Well, it's too big. What do you mean? I wrote a small milk. Well, what does small milk mean? Well, small milk is something that I can actually hold in my hand, whereas a square container is harder for me to grasp. Okay, so the conversation needed to happen about why a smaller milk was necessary because even getting another box in a lesser volume size wasn't getting the job done, right? So it's like that's where a decoder ring would have really helped. Like I went so many grocery runs getting the wrong milk and yet getting the right milk, right?
or and then the answers too. The other thing that I find interesting is that because of where they might be in time, right? Because they're in different times often
Mhm.
may determine their response. So if I made an assumption that, well, this is what they said, so this is what we're going to move forward with. The assumptions change, or the difficulty to do something changes, or a flavor might change. Whereas one day peppers and onions were not a go, I like peppers and onions a week later. And so that was interesting to me too, that you can't assume that just because you've been told the one thing, that over time, because of where they are time zone wise, what they're feeling like, they may change their mind completely in the response process. So that's that being present, like really present in the moment. Because we talk about that a lot, but I don't always practice that.
Right, right. Well, I think that, we all have busy lives. And I think that one of the things that was always made clear to me was that my mother was clearly aware of my busy life and she didn't want to interfere in it, but she wanted a place in it. She wanted to have, to participate in it. And so to be cognizant of that, what does that look like? What would be your ideal? Do you want to visit more? Do you want to go and do things more? Well, there might be an energy deficit. So she doesn't want to be on the run, running around and doing things with me at my pace, but she wants to be able to spend time together. So what does that look like? And coming to an agreement of what was good. And it really takes a while. It's a dance. It's like you have entered into a brand new relationship. You have this relationship with your parent for decades, and then the relationship just changes. And now you're not breaking up. You've got to redefine it. And that's the difficult part. That's where the decoder ring comes in, right? You have to redefine it so that it works for both of you. David,
Yes.
you've been quiet, and I know that you too have a parent with whom you would love to have a decoder ring.
I have
What?
2 of them.
So, what jumps out as the major difference in your relationship from the one you had in your formative years with your parents and as the tables turn and you become more the decision maker and facilitator of things on their behalf?
It's different with both parents. Excuse me. My dad is very independent. I mean, he's married. He has in a second marriage, so he has someone who's kind of his caregiver, who is his wife is a little younger than he is, and he's in a financial position that is very strong. So he's very independent. My mom is actually 2 years older than him, and we had to. The relationship really changed in the last few years, and that's where we had to step in and be a caregiver for her. But it changed really emotionally a long time ago. I have two sisters. For us, when my parents split, we were adult children of divorced parents, which is not always so easy because you have to redefine your experience and relationship with them when you're in your 20s and 30s, as opposed to most people I knew who got to have that experience when they were much younger. So as an adult, redefining an experience, understanding how they worked as individuals rather than as a pair was challenging. And then when we got to, advanced years and other challenges, how to deal with them. And, so it's less, there aren't so many cognitive issues at this point, which I'm thankful for, but there's a lot of emotional stuff and perception about things, that was hard to manage, even doing what we do, right, for a living. For instance, when we got to a certain point, we thought maybe a better location for my mom would be moving her to be closer to my partner and myself, which was a 150-mile move, which was more challenging than I expected. Um,
Mhm.
and, moving someone, and Jane also moved her parents out of, from Buffalo, right? Down to Baltimore.
That sounds the
Kept
farmhouse.
them in B cities, but, uh, but, uh, what I didn't realize was that what we did, which I thought would be helpful in terms of being close to one of us, she was close to my sister before, but we wanted to change that up a little bit to give her a break. They're very, as you said, they don't want a lot of assistance at some point. She was very stubborn, but also needed a lot of assistance. So it was that in between. But what didn't work out well in that situation was the isolation that occurred. And putting someone alone in a house that was a couple miles outside of town was challenging. So we had to think about, well, what are other alternatives? And really the best alternative was moving her into a community independent living. But that was not a choice that she was willing to take or agreeable to. So
It's so interesting because, as we all know, one of the biggest challenges for any seniors is isolation, right? And that's a real concern for anybody whose parents are not living close to neighbors or close to community. And it was interesting when my mother moved, she moved across the country, and she often would tell people that we moved her to Chicago, but in fact, she made that decision, and she made the decision on her own, and she lived independently, but not in independent living. She lived in a planned community kind of a deal, but it was all ages, and she enjoyed swimming every day and that kind of thing, but her lifestyle changed, right? She went from living in the Southwest to living in Chicago, and the thing that absolutely saved the day was the fact that there was community. And she was her whole life somebody who joined things, did things, ran things. And so she immediately got involved in the community. And that was super helpful. And so she could continue to tell people that, under protest, she was moved from, the warm climes of the Southwest to the frigid, terrible Midwest. But at the same time, she was playing bridge every week. She was writing for the newsletter. She was getting together with the community and taking advantage of theater and whatnot in Chicago. And so I think that what saved the situation was that engagement, right? And her getting involved. But I think that when you are involved in a move with one of your parents, and they think they have to be independent. Like, your mom wanted to be independent. My mom wanted to be independent. Sometimes they don't want to ask for help, right? They want to be able to do it themselves, but they find in that they actually do need help. And so we actually stepped away. My mother was like, she had it. She didn't want us to have our fingerprints all over it. She was going to manage it. And so we stepped away until she asked for help, you know. And
Yeah,
it came because she needed, help to get things straightened out and moving in and all the pieces, right?
we had to force it, unfortunately, because the change was not happening, and where she was not sustainable, I think, for her long term. So we consulted with a geriatric psychologist, my sisters and I. Again, as a group, but you guys are you were single. I mean, Jane, you're a single decision maker at this point, right? And
Right.
you were a single decision maker, right, Phoebe?
Yeah.
Sure, they're siblings, so it takes a little bit of negotiation too.
Sure.
Unfortunately, we supported each other and we're on the same page. So that was good. But because of the nature of who my mom is, getting her to change would not happen according to the counseling we got. So we had to get her to a point where she was kind of desperate to force a change. And that was not pleasant. But sometimes you need to do something that's not pleasant to create a better life for someone and so we had to force power of attorney in order to take over and make decisions and then move her into a community that I thought would be a good community for her. Unfortunately, because of the world we work in, we have access to people, and it was a community and a management company I knew. And she went in pretty much kicking and screaming. Can I just tell you, she is an advert for senior living. She's happier than she's ever been.
That's fantastic.
I saw her yesterday. All she did was complain about where she lived before. All she does is say how much she loves it.
That's
And you
great.
couldn't-
Ask for anything more than that. So, because I had my parents the year before that we did the duplex thing, they were supposed to move into a community. My mom asked, she goes, I can only do so much with your dad, and I need help. And, she was willing to admit that some of that. And so we talked about it, and she goes, well, this industry, I need to have this done before the snow flies, which would have been like November for their October for Buffalo. So I was like, okay. So I got right on it, found the place, brought them down. They went through it. They could not have been two more resistant people on the planet. And they had signed all the paperwork. The blinds had been ordered for the apartment. I thought, okay, we're almost there. Went on vacation. While I was away on vacation overseas, my mom wrote the woman a letter and said, we're not moving and you can't make us.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, all right. So I backed off. I was like, we had gone through a lot, like different, going to see different places, trying to find the right fit and they have not been the last probably 25 years. My dad's been retired since he's 59. He's, 84. So you think about like what you'd want to be doing or activities, and their world had gotten very small. They lived in a small truck farming town, South Towns. That's where you always hear about the lake effect snow that comes through. They were there. We finally got them to get a generator that year because they were going to stay another winter. And so in the spring, the house next door, it became available. And I called the owner who was living in Massachusetts. It was being rented. And I said, hey, I know them. They used to live here. You want to negotiate a deal on the duplex? And I called my mom and I said, there's no backsies on this. So if you're going to do this, we have to really do this. We decided to do it. We moved forward. She never tried to, kind of back out of it, but we had to purchase it, sell the farm, clean out the farm, clean out the barn, clean out just all this stuff had to happen in less than I think it happened in like 3 months. We got everything done.
Wow.
Got it
Wow.
purchased and closed on it in September. We started in June to September. I started the construction before we even owned the property and had the outside redone and stuff like that to get it done. But the thing that I learned quickly, two things. One was that whereas I would like to see more engagement because I think it would make them happier, just like your mom found
Right.
it. But like in Phoebe, your mom found that they engaged more.
Right.
But there is a piece of them that's fairly content just being there. Their day,
And
they sleep till 10. They have some breakfast. They read the paper. And I'm glad I started getting the paper again because my mom had stopped getting it. She thought it was too expensive. So then you're isolating more, right? Like
right.
when you cut it down. They never had cable in their life. They never used a smartphone. I tried with the smartphone. It got thrown in a box and then kind of thrown at me. And so then we started using the flip phone, and she wouldn't use the flip phone. But then when she realized the flip phone was the only means of communication when she got here, then she started using it. So,
Mhm.
and dad can use it fine. That seems like he can't, but he can handle that. I got a special remote for the TV called Jubilee that works and that it's really easy for them and they can manage it. So, as much as once in a while I'll hear, "Oh, we don't get dressed up, we don't go out," that was kind of the thing, and I thought I would feel bad, and I thought, "Well, no, can't really because I can find things for them to do. I can invite my friends have been amazing, but at least I know that they're okay. They are content. And if they take a nap after they eat their breakfast and read the paper, it's okay. I have a lovely caregiver. It took two tries, really. It probably took 4 tries, really. But to find someone that really worked with them. And they had to understand that my mom's personality. So if my mom got, you need to leave right now, because she would do that. And she still sometimes can do that, but she really likes her. So that helps. And so she prepares meals and she chit chats and she shares about her kid. I needed someone who would engage with them
Yeah.
because being the sole engager is really harder than you would ever imagine it being. My Lauren, who works with me, her mom, Lori, and I've known each other for 30 years. We used to work in a retirement community together. She just came by and brought her granddaughter with her on last Thursday, brought a little plant, brought dad some Snickers. He'd riffled through the bag and I go, "Oh, look, that's why you weren't that hungry for dinner." It was all the little empty wrappers to find out that it goes, "Yeah, they took the big bag away." So, but that engagement for 2 hours is enough for them. We
Yeah.
went to pick up dinner and then on Saturday and I said, "Would you like to we ate dinner at home." They didn't want to go in the restaurant. I said, "Okay." So I brought dinner home and they came with me. I said, "Do you want to go out for ice cream now?" And they're like, "No, we're tired. We're full. We're good." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. I mean,
Kind of
interesting thing.
docile.
Yeah. My mom said to me the interesting thing, she's more of an isolator. She doesn't, when she moved here, she really had no interest in engaging with anyone in the community except for coming to dinner at our house. And what she said is like, I can be in my apartment when I don't want to be around anyone, but if I get lonely, I can open the door and walk out the door. And she discovered that,
Right.
which was a big deal.
It's a
And
big deal.
yeah, and she doesn't like the food. That's her only complaint, thankfully. Is the big salesman for the community. She said the ED is now likes her being out in the entry area because she's telling everyone to move in there. First, she walked in there, and the first thing she said, and everyone says this, they're too old for me. They look around her
Right.
like
Yeah.
they
There's a bunch of old
can't.
people here.
Yeah, they can't put themselves in that place, and they don't want to. It's like when we get up in the morning, you look in the mirror, and sometimes I startle myself, like how'd that happen? But we are aging, and other people who are our age look our age in different, everyone, of course, ages a little differently. But so that was really interesting to see the very, very quick change in attitude. She's in a play now, which I found out more, which is, he
That's a
said,
big That's big.
yeah, there's a woman who's a playwright, used to work in theater, who wrote a play. And she said to my mother, who is a little bit of a narcissist, and my mother like this was that, oh, you must have been in theater before. And there's no, I haven't. But she's excited. She's in the play, and she has had a date with a guy a couple times who's an attorney. She's like again, it's choosing where they move to. It happens to be that this community in Millbrook has a lot of ex-New Yorkers, so there's people who are bright and professional. And even though her table is all, I know this is not a political discussion, is all Republican, she just tells her table mates who she really likes, please don't talk about politics to me or I have to leave. But they don't.
That's
Right.
great though you could have that honest conversation. The other thing is no filter. My
Yeah.
goodness, the older they get, the less
There's no filter. The filter goes away.
yeah.
Yep, the filter goes away, and you have to brace yourself for that because you spent your formative years listening to your parents who basically told you to filter what you had to say, right? You don't say this in polite company. You don't say this at this time or at that time. Keep that to yourself, whatever. And then all of a sudden, the calendar shifts. They become a different age and they have no filter. That's like, well, it's like, what happened there? And you just have to accept it because it's what's happening. And then you also have to think about it when you're going places with them, knowing that that could happen because you have to remind yourself that could happen. So you adjust. And I think that's a really important piece of it. It's meet them where they are, recognize the lack of filter, adjust where you're going with them, and recognize those things. And make sure you're continuing to engage them and ask them what they want. Because if we don't ask them what they want, we really don't know. Because if we assume from our childhood or our 20s that they're different people now, they don't want that same thing. I think
Yeah.
that's part of the decoder is really asking them.
The other thing, Phoebe, is that because of the shift in relationship, they also tend to, like, my mother did not want, I would ask her, a lot of times this was not what she wanted. But they also don't. And I remember talking maybe a year or two with you, Jane. I think we were both exasperated with our parents. We're like, this is the work we do. And like, we can't seem to like get them to move. And, like they're like set in their way. But it's hard for them to shift their perception of who we are and the expertise we have. So sometimes they don't want to, again, how you adjust your delivery, but also they don't think that we might have some expertise that could help improve their lives in some way or their, experience of life. So I think that's challenging.
I do think that they may acknowledge that we have that expertise. I know my mother did, but at the same time, they don't want us to manage them because of it. And that's a really tricky piece.
That's a tricky piece because we used to talk about that in doing regulatory like code writing and stuff, but people don't want to be managed or handled, right? Because that's like some of our risk assessments and stuff are around managing and handling. But what I did realize is that trying to make sure mealtime happens. And my mother's like, well, if we're hungry, we eat. Well, a donut doesn't count, or, chocolate chip cookies don't count. But sometimes it's okay, right? If it's not a completely balanced meal. I mean, I'd like someone to just do what I want, sometimes. But they won't give input if I say, what would you like to have for dinner? But if I go in at lunchtime and I say, "Hey, I think you should come on out to the kitchen. I've got some sandwiches and I've got some stuff for you. Come on out." And it'll be like, "Well, can you bring it in?" "No, I can't bring it in. It's just too much. You're going to have to come out because that otherwise they don't get out of the recliner." And I think sometimes that some people are always in motion. And then I think others, they're not in motion. So any encouragement in motion. We had physical therapy at home when my mom fell last November, and it was perfect because her gait was so much better afterwards. She didn't break anything, thank goodness. And she worked with my dad too. So I got a twofer there. And that was another 2-hour activity for, 3 months that was kept ongoing. I mean,
Nice.
yeah, so you're always looking for the activity level, and they'll say, "Ken, is there anything I can do to help?" So at Christmas time, I can still picture them sitting across from where I'm sitting now and seeing them cutting potatoes and cutting vegetables and stuff. So yesterday, they're like, "What can we do?" And I set them up, and they cut up all the strawberries for dessert. And I was like, so having the piece of engagement is good. Sometimes I forget to try to include them in something because time is tight. You're tired. You're trying to get other stuff done. You're trying to work. So balancing that, even just to pop in, or the fact that my friends will drop by and see them means a lot to me because that's just a point of engagement. And they're friends from home. They have one couple they're close to that's my age, and they'll call periodically. We were supposed to call them yesterday. We didn't get to that. But it's funny when they call because they'll remember that they called. They might not remember what the conversation was, but they could tell me, "Oh,
Right.
Henry Maria called today." That means somebody cares about me. And that's what
Right.
I hear, that somebody cares enough about me, to know. So I think that's part of it as well. And some days, one of my friends was here yesterday. She goes, you can't beat yourself up for them not wanting to do stuff. And I was like, okay, you're right. but you can present the opportunities, pack them in the car and go, come on, we're going for a ride, even if it's just a ride. And she goes, why would you go all the way up there to buy flowers? I said, because it's a journey. It's the journey that entertains. My grandmother had been like that. You take her for a ride, she would calm herself down and she would be a lot easier and she would enjoy herself if she could do that. So, yeah, learned a lot.
So maybe let's do a top 5 takeaways on the decoder. I think, Jane, your number one was meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm. Meet them where they are, for sure.
David,
Number one or number two?
number 2.
Number two, good question. I guess, yeah. I think managing frustration on both sides.
Managing frustration on both sides. So giving each other a little bit more grace and taking a breath more often, maybe.
Taking the deep breath. I read that there's a guy who takes care of his wife who has Alzheimer's, and he started a caregiving group that's on Facebook. And I love him because he'll be like, okay, you're doing the best you can right at the moment. And he'll go, take a breath. And
That's
he
right.
has like just these little things. And I don't follow him every day, but every once in a while he'll pop up and it'll be those kinds of things where you're thinking, oh, I'm so frustrated and they're frustrated. What do I do? So you just take a breath, step away for a minute, step back in.
Right. I think another one, maybe number 3, ask for the engagement, ask their opinion. Make sure that you're not just being the decision maker, but that you're actually actively engaging them. Because I think the outcome's going to be better if they feel that they're part of that decision making or part of that solution.
And sometimes that's an opinion. So my dad was really good with his hands. He was a troubleshooting electrician. He built things. He built cabinets in my house. He built cabinets at their home. He did a lot of woodworking, that kind of thing. So sometimes I'll go, I got this problem, this thing. I can't get such and such to unscrew, to do that. Don't you think that if I did this or that? And he'll go, let me look at it, and a lot of times he'll go, yeah, I think you do that and that should work. And, one time the 3 of us put together one of those, I'll call it the IKEA chair that comes in like 8 million pieces in a box. Took us all day, but we had a really good day, right? We did the seat at the grill for Father's Day one year, and it took 2 snacks, 2 beers, and a lot of patience, but we eventually got the grill put together, right? And so those things are more engaging, and they're more interested in those things than I would have ever thought, because that engagement is more like you're helping me, and they'll always, what is something I can do to help, So going off of what their experience is, my mom would have been cooking, so I gave her the cookbook one day and asked her to go through and mark every page that she thought we could plan a meal for a holiday around. So she marked it. So that it was an activity, but it was also something useful. So they don't feel like they're not just being like, it's not just busy time, or busy work.
Well, and I think that also leads into another point, which is the pace is different now, right? And so for them, it's not about expediency,
That's true.
and so we have to remember that too, because for us, it's like something else that we're checking off a list. But for them, it's right. It's really about, taking their time to do it, whatever time it takes, because they aren't looking at a watch or the phone. They don't really care what time it is.
It's really true.
I think number 3 or number 4, wherever we are on the list right now. Are we on number 3 or number 4?
You were number 4.
Number 4. I think what was really helpful for us was to get outside expert advice, because
I think that's super solid.
it was because we were too invested or vested in having change happen, and without getting the guidance that we had, we couldn't have had facilitate the move that we did, which now put my mother in a place that's very good. She's in a good
I think
place.
that's a
She's in a
super, super important point, David. I think that we do have 4 top points, and we'll go back through, and then maybe we'll even put up a slide that says the top 4 or 5 items. I think getting that outside help is so critical, and I would dovetail on that if we are getting outside help to deal with our parents and elders, that we make sure that we are getting that gerontological help. people who are focused on that phase of life, because a regular psychologist is not going to have the same tools as a gerontologist will have. And they really can give us better guidelines, I think.
That was invaluable.
And I think the other thing too, and I found this with another colleague and friend of mine, him and his partner were taking care of an older couple, two men, and they were too close to the situation. And I think that happened to me. I was trying to, after my mother fell, I could not get the coordinated care. I thought I understood the service system, right? No, I didn't. Not nearly as well as I thought I did. And I got a case manager that one of my social worker friends found. She was amazing. She just cut through the crap. There was all of a sudden I had a geriatrician coming to the home, and that's how we do doctor's visits now. I had home PT lined up and didn't have to go through home healthcare because they knew how to rework the system to get the payment to go directly to PT through Medicare instead of having to go through home healthcare, which we needed a diagnosis, and their other primary care could not seemingly make that connection. And
Right.
and the non-geriatrician physician was giving us names for places that didn't even work in our service area. So until I got that woman on board, all of a sudden everything just clicked in place. She in the state of Maryland, you need a specific prescription instead of just having like your DNR and your power of attorney. You actually have to have a MOLST form signed by a physician, like a prescription, to be honor what you want for DNR. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, finding the right people at the right time, and don't be ask, and you will be amazed. And there's not a lot, but they are out there to help.
Right. Well, I think that's pretty valuable. I think if people will listen to those cues and those top tips, that will help them in their journey to decoding their parents, relatives, neighbors that they are trying to help. Any last words, guys?
Be
No, I mean,
health.
yeah, patient.
Pardon me?
What'd you say, David? I'm sorry.
No, it's just like, I mean, it was an amazing learning experience for me. And I'm very grateful that now where she is, that she's happy, that we know that she's healthy because we're informed, and it couldn't have been a better outcome. For
I
now.
think we'll close on that note. Jane and David, thank you for joining us on ALC Chats. And I look forward to getting this out there to all these other folks who are challenged by trying to figure out what their aging parents and relatives want. Hopefully, this will be very helpful to them. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phoebe. Bye, David.